outrage. There's always plenty of it in the NRL world. We're going to decide if it's real or ridiculous today. I'm Chris Danks. You, my friend, are Liam O'Loughlin. We are the fair Dinkum Department. We're going to talk some footy, some finals footy specifically. Let's get the finals week 2 stuff out of the way. We're both saying game of the round / week was Storm Roosters.
I think so, yeah. It's hard to go past.
Yeah.
It was a pretty gripping affair, especially that probably last 10 to 15 minutes. I thought the Roosters were home, and to be honest, I think we said before we started recording, I think we both agree they probably deserved to win that game.
Yeah.
In the end, but it wasn't to be. I guess the battle scars from the Sharks game and just the injuries and suspensions mounting up.
I was a bit surprised by everyone going, it was the nous of Cameron Munster which won it. Cameron Munster's one of the best players in the world, but probably wasn't his best game. I know he kicked it, the game-winning assist for lack of a better term, but meh.
I thought out of the spine, I thought Nick Meaney probably had, probably needed to have a good game after the week before against Broncos, and Harry Grant off the bench with Bronson Garlick starting that first little period at 9. I thought that worked really well for Melbourne, so I would assume that's probably the way they will lean this weekend.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Fair Dinkum Department. All we do is we talk outrage. Who better to talk about outrage, apart from maybe Latrell Mitchell, than referees? Woo! Ashley Klein, step up. Lots of stories going around. So obviously there was 2 pretty ordinary calls during the game. There was the Harry Grant knock on, which was right in front of Klein. And then there was the high tackle, which was the very end of the game. Watching it live, did you think it was a high tackle?
Yeah, it looked like he probably would have clipped him high, but it didn't look like it was like a swinging arm or anything like that, and the replay showed that it wasn't. It was just a bit of accidental high contact from Sam Walker, who's 75 kilos, ringing wet.
I wonder if, and we'll get to both those incidents, but I wonder if the stuff with Whiten, with the biting, if that hadn't happened, if this would be such a big story. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it still would be.
Yeah.
I think both of those were pretty big howlers. I think that the issue
howlers, you reckon?
Oh, the Harry Grant one was an absolute howler. That was he was right there as well, and with the way that the bunker is set up, they can't intervene in that situation because there was no stoppage in play or a player didn't stay down or anything like that. I think that the bigger issue, and I think Phil Gould said this on 100% Footy as well, the Sam Walker high tackle, Harry Grant's stayed down and the bunker looked at it and they gave it the all clear, and it was pretty obvious he did get him high. Yep. How much force there was behind it doesn't really matter. And the way that it has been officiated the whole year, that's a high tackle 99 times out of 100.
Because it has to be a reportable offence for them to, or what they think will be a reportable offence.
Anything gets put on report these days. So I don't know. I think that was probably that was more of a systemic issue, I think, is the issue I had with that. Whereas the Harry Grant's just a howler. Referees are going to miss things every now and again. I don't know how. Ashley Klein, who was a metre away, and the 2 touch judges both missed it. It was a knock on when the 20,000 fans and everyone watching at home saw that it was a knock on.
But I guess everyone could say they saw it as a knock on at home when their career's not on the line. Because I thought Graham Annesley's presser on Monday was really interesting. It was quite fortuitous to have camera footage.
Was it?
Of course not. They had vision, which is like right from where Klein was standing, showed it in real time. Tough to make that call. And I don't know. I can understand that he has to be dropped because they want to show that the refs need to be right. But I think this quote here from Annesley yesterday was probably really telling. He was saying, no matter who's appointed to these games, talking about the grand final, which Klein did last year, there can never be a guarantee that there won't be more errors. Now, that's really tough to take probably as a Roosters fan. You're like, that doesn't help me now while the boys are on Mad Monday. But I don't think it was a howler. I just genuinely do not. And if we're looking at the high tackle one, I think that probably the bunker should have come in because it is a reportable offence if we're going off the rest of the year. But he saw it in real time. That would have defined the game. If he'd got it wrong, he would have been hammered. He got it wrong. He was hammered. Depends. I think either way, he was going to lose on that.
Yeah, I think with with Ashley Klein, I guess it's probably been a build-up of a few different things over the first 2 weeks of the finals. Obviously, the Jack Whiten one, a lot of people, myself included, thought that Jack Whiten should have probably been sent off for the bite. And then he was found guilty at the judiciary. So, everyone that said he should have been sent off was probably proven right in that case. And then obviously the Roosters game, that the Harry Grant knock on, probably tried to square things up a little bit too much after that. Apologising to James Tedesco, and then obviously the high tackle towards the end. There was also a hip drop, which I thought, the way that they'd been officiated the whole year, I was surprised to see let go by Klein and the bunker. So I think it's more of a build-up of things. And, he's no longer the number one referee in the NRL. If you're looking at the appointments throughout the final series, Adam G and Ashley Klein were the two referees on the weekend. If Ashley Klein's getting dropped, that would make you think that Adam G is the number one top dog in the NRL now, which should mean that he gets the grand final. Unless, he comes up with a couple of howlers himself this weekend, which God forbid doesn't happen. So it's interesting because Ashley Klein has been, at the very top. Him
last
and Ben
two
Cummins,
Origin series, he's been the guy.
For the last, probably feels like 5-10 years at least, him and Ben Cummins have been right up there. Matt Chechen was there for a while as well, but I feel like Adam G is deservedly the number one referee in the NRL. I really like the way he goes about his business, the way he talks to players as well. So I think if he's there on grand final day instead of a more experienced guy like Ashley Klein, I think that's the right decision.
So real or ridiculous, Ashley Klein deserves to be dropped.
Real. Sorry, mate. It's a tough business.
No, I could say, I could say because they were two wrong decisions in hindsight, there has to be some type of, not repercussion, but something has to be done. But will another ref make those exact same calls? I think so. On to one again, which is tailor-made for us in the fair Dinkum department here. Panthers CEO Brian Fletcher is claiming the Broncos have an unfair advantage by playing at Suncorp Stadium. Now, obviously, the Panthers will not be playing out in Penrith. They will be at Homebush, which is a core, and technically Sydney Olympic Park, but I'll never call it that. We have details here, but just off the top, does that scream real or ridiculous to you?
Oh, absolutely ridiculous. It's a very strange take. I don't know where he's thinking, his thought process was when he made those comments. Does he think that Penrith shouldn't be playing in Sydney? Does he think they should be playing at a neutral ground? I don't understand. I don't see the benefit in that at all. And where does he want the Broncos to play if they're not at Suncorp Stadium? Because that's the best ground in Queensland, and it's probably the best rugby league ground in the country.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know does he want them to go play at Seabus Super Stadium in front of half the capacity at a worse ground that hasn't been used for a few weeks now? I don't know. I just don't understand where he was coming from. They don't have an unfair advantage. This is the way that it's always been. Penrith are still getting to play in Western Sydney. They're still going to have a lot of fans there, more fans than they would have at Bluebet Stadium. So I don't understand it.
Neither do I. I don't. Even if it was like, oh, well, this is some type of 4D chess, it still blows my mind.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have no idea what you're doing there, Fletch.
Yeah, the whole neutral ground thing. That's just not how rugby league is.
This isn't a new thing.
Yeah, this is how it's always been. You've earned the right to play in your home city, and in week one of the finals, if you're a Cronulla or a Newcastle, or a Dragons, if they ever make it back there, you're allowed to, and you've earned the right to play at your home ground, whether how big, how small it is, or how close it is to where you're located. And then, in week 3 in a prelim final, you play in your home city. And the Broncos' home city is Brisbane, and the best stadium in Brisbane is Suncorp Stadium. So I think Brian Fletcher is just having a sook about nothing, if we're being fair dinkum. So, I hope the Broncos win and, Penrith win, and they can sook about it for another week heading into the grand final. But, the Broncos have earned the right to play at Suncorp.
I think the Storm should have to play at Marvel.
Yeah.
With the AFL marking still on the ground.
Yeah, I don't understand where he's coming from.
Also, Panthers have won 8 of 11 at a core since 2018.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So what are you worrying about?
So real or ridiculous, should the Broncos be forced out of Suncorp?
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Light work, baby. Light work. Sticking with Brisbane, the Warriors-Bronx time slot. Last week was mad. Knights-Warriors, 6 p.m. New Zealand time, 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard on Saturday Arvo, the way footy should be, in my opinion. It's not going to be that this week. It'll be starting in New Zealand, almost 10 p.m, runs past midnight. That's late for anyone, especially kids. This is nothing new again, really, with the time slot. There has been a fair bit of feedback about it. Now, Brisbane's going to be the place to be on the weekend because you've got the Lions, who are playing Carlton at 5:15 at the Gabba. Should the NRL have tried to do anything? I don't think they could have.
I think they did try, but I think the broadcast deal with Channel 9 was pretty well locked in for this weekend and for the game to be
6 p.m. news outside of like the Origin and NRL Finals is like that's their cash cow.
Yeah,
they're not moving that.
No.
So it's unfortunate, but a lot of the hand-wringing about it's been, obviously the Warriors did so much for rugby league during the pandemic, which they did. They were amazing. And I think everyone's kind of going for them now. It's out of the NRL's hands.
Yeah, it is out of the NRL's hands, but it is disappointing that the game is not at, 3 p.m. or a 4 p.m. kickoff, even 5 o'clock. It's disappointing if you're a Warriors supporter or if you're a supporter of rugby league in general. Brisbane and, is it Carlton in the AFL prelim is going to be on at 5 o'clock?
5:15, yeah.
Yeah. So, but how much overlap would there be from, Brisbane Lions supporters and Broncos supporters who would have been going to both? Probably not very much.
Yeah.
So they could have played their game, and if it clashed with it, it clashed with it. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen the game kick off at 4 or 5 p.m, which makes it easier for for the New Zealand fans to watch their team play. But it's a Saturday night. I'm sure parents will let their kids stay up and hopefully cheer on the Wires towards a grand final berth.
Ooh, you're big on the Wires?
I don't think they'll win.
Yeah, but
I would like to see them get through. But I feel like Brisbane with a week off,
it's gonna be tough.
It's going to be a big ask. The same thing for Melbourne playing against Penrith. I think it's going to be a big ask.
No, I think you're right. You ready for a media feud?
Oh,
we've got one.
Media feud.
Media feud. Oh, yeah.
It's come from left field, really.
Media adjacent.
Yeah.
Willie Mason v. Tyson Gamble. Righto. When I first heard Willie Mason saying the Knights have the worst spine in the NRL outside of Ponga, I was like, it's a bit red hot, but it's also
probably
there's some truth. There is some truth to it. Like tough to hear, and I'm all for Tyson Gamble coming back using rude words to come back at Willie Mason, as you well should. So Gamble came back after week 1 win and said Mason should go F himself. Fair. I'm not the first person to have said that. Then Mason's return serve on Twitter called Gamble below average. Which
pick your battles, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was before the game was even over as well. It was pretty spicy. I don't know. It adds theatre, and I know people are a bit up in arms about it. I didn't like it. I've got to be honest. I thought it was just sticking the boot in, kicking a bloke while he's down. But Gamble probably could have handled the initial criticism a little bit better.
Yeah.
Instead of firing back as hard as he did. But that's the type of character that Tyson Gamble is. He's the same way on the field that he is off the field by all reports. So, look, I didn't love it from Willie. I've got to be honest. I think he should know better than that. But he's a big personality, and his opinion, he's entitled to it. So
half of his job, he got that gig because he has the NRL chops to say it and people listen, but because he says big things and he doesn't have to back them up. He can say whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
People expect if he said that was a really good game and the Knights over deliver this year. Oh, great, whatever. He's never going to say that, and no one wants to hear that.
Yeah,
play on.
And if you look at on paper at the Newcastle spine outside of Kalen Ponga, I think it was maybe a little bit disrespectful to Jackson Hastings. I think he's a little bit better than Willie was giving him credit for. But Tyson Gamble and Phoenix Crossland are guys that for a lot of their career have been bit part bench players, reserve grade players. Phoenix Crossland's only playing in the 9 because Jaden Brayley's out for the season with injury. So on paper, maybe Willie, there was a little bit of truth to what he was saying initially. Tyson had the right to respond, and maybe he went a little bit too hard. And if you're going to come at someone like Willie Mason and then get belted by 30 the next week, you're probably going to have to expect some kind of response. But I didn't love the timing of it from Willie and the very public manner that he did, as opposed to just maybe responding on his own podcast in the days that followed. I guess the other thing, I think Buzz Rothfield raised it on 360, is that Willie Mason also holds a job at Canterbury on their coaching staff and, you know, looking after the development of some younger players. Do you feel like the way that he criticises some players from other clubs is a bit of an issue in that regard?
Not even a little bit. I think you can separate the two very easily. And if you can't separate the two, grow up. Lots of people have two jobs in footy. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah,
I don't think it's a thing.
And Willie's not like he's not a Cooper Cronk or a Phil Gould that's maybe a little bit articulate. He was a front rower. He played the game hard, and he played the game hard off the field as well. And he's a guy that he has his opinion, and he's someone that likes to voice it. And you've got to respect that side of things. I just think the timing, kicking a bloke while he's down, pretty shitty thing to do. But there's bigger issues in rugby league, I would say.
Side note, do you follow rugby league fights on Facebook?
I don't know.
I don't know how I came across it, even though it's the perfect page for me. But there was one yesterday of a fight I'd completely forgotten about. Willie Mason, Martin Lang.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, it was kind of off the ball. They had to remove the cameras to find it. And Willie hit Martin Lang with 3 of the cleanest shots I've ever seen. And the big man did not move. He just went... And just like, it always seems like every 2 weeks at least there's a Willie Mason fight come up where it seems like he had some pretty quick hands on him, but just not dropping that many people.
Maybe you should be fighting up in Townsville in a couple of weeks.
Yes, do it, Willie.
Yes.
And then on to the NRL judiciary. Woo! JWH, the 7-game suspension. As for the high shot and the headbutt, that was all within like 2 minutes.
30 seconds, yeah.
So he's already served 3 games. He would miss 4 games next year. Now, there's the whole drama with New Zealand Rugby League saying if they're going to pick him for those upcoming tests, or they would have picked him, they count towards suspension. Your man Gus has come out saying NRL bans shouldn't count for rep and vice versa. I like it. I tend to agree with Fogel, truth be told. I think it's gaming the system, which it's the NRL. That's what happens. But I think it's tough to see someone who maybe would have been named, maybe wouldn't have, suddenly getting basically a 3-game discount.
Yeah, I agree that there probably needs to be a slight adjustment to the way the judiciary process works in regards to representative games and NRL games and All-Stars games and trial games. Like I think Jack Wyden he's retired from rep football, right? But there were some rumblings that he was considering coming out of retirement.
That was great.
Also, he's going to play in the All-Star, or he was going to play in the All-Stars game in probably February, March next year. And he won't be able to now because of suspension. That will count. Take a game off his ban with the Rabbitohs. Still rules him out of a Vegas trip, which is disappointing news for Jack. I'm sure he's devastated by that. But with Jared, I feel like a lot of the reaction, I wouldn't say uproar, but the reaction to him possibly using his representative commitments with New Zealand, that, I feel like on merit for his performances throughout a lot of the year and for the last 10, 12 years, probably should have been picked in the squad. I know they've got a lot of young forwards as well, but I feel like he probably should have or could have been picked in the squad. I think it's fair enough. I think the outrage, or whatever you want to call it, comes from the fact that it's Jared Waerea-Hargreaves.
Yeah.
He plays for the Roosters. People already think that the Roosters, bend the rules a little bit in a few different respects. So I think that's where the reaction has come from. But if you can find a way around it, I don't see any issue with it if it's within the rules. It's not like he was a reserve grade player that, the Kangaroos and Melbourne Storm say, oh yeah, we were going to pick him. It's Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. He's one of the best front rowers of the last, 2 decades or of all time, in my opinion. So I think fair enough. If you can find the loophole and it's within the rules, go for it.
It stinks for me. I don't think he would have been selected.
Okay.
That's just me. Finally, on to your man, Keaon Koloamatangi. Only 25 still. Keep thinking he's older. So he is off contract next year. Clubs can speak to him from November 1. Everybody's lining up, as you would. Had great years, played Origin. The Raiders, Dragons, Roosters, all considering big dog cash, around $900K a year.
The Raiders are the big one. They've been linked with him for,
and they've got the
a
money
little while now, and they should have money, with Jack leaving, obviously. The Dragons are obviously going through a bit of a rebuild with Shane Flanagan, and the Roosters, and now potentially in the mix. I think it was Danny Weidler on 100% Footy on Monday night is reporting they're looking at Keaon as a long-term prospect. Obviously, Angus Crichton is off contract at the end of next year. There's been talk about him possibly moving on. Satili Tupanua has had a pretty wretched run with injuries in the last 12 months. He's off contract at the end of next year. Keaon's a fantastic footballer. Obviously been high on him for a long time. And I think he's worth every penny. But it would be, it would add another chapter to the book of feuds, wouldn't it?
It would. But even just, I'd hate to be the person who's balancing the cap for the Rabbitohs. So the question, I guess for us, really ridiculous. Should the Bunnies splash the cash on Keaon? I think they should. They definitely should. Because it looks like they still believe they're in their premiership window. You got Trell, White, and Tavita Totola, Graham, Murray, all signed through 2027. Now, they do have quite a few guys who come off in 2025, so he's going to have to take significantly less for a while. But if you can afford it, and you need, apart from Totola, you need someone else in the pack, I think he's your guy.
Yeah, well, because they've lost Hame Sele. He's obviously going back to the Dragons. Tom Burgess has signed a 1-year extension, which would probably make me believe he's probably coming towards the end of his NRL career, unless he does go and play for his brother over in the Super League to finish things off. But Jai Arrow is the other one that still hasn't agreed to terms, or he's agreed to terms but hasn't signed on the dotted line with South Sydney. He was looking at a contract extension for 3 to 4 years around $800,000 from all reports. Keaon was probably looking at around the same. With Jack Whiten coming in, new deal for Cam Murray, who was already on a decent wicket. Tavita Totola was already on decent coin, and he's playing fantastic footy and signed a long-term deal. Those guys are all going upwards in their salaries. I think it's going to make it difficult for South to keep both Keaon and Jai Arrow, and I said that from the start. And I probably would have thought that Jai might have been the one that did end up moving on, but if you to believe the whispers, it looks like it might be Keaon.
It just makes no sense to me.
He's a local junior as well. He's probably not even in the prime of his career yet, and he's already played for New South Wales. He's played for Tonga and carved up, was one of the players of the tournament last year in the World Cup, and he's established himself as a guy that can play 80 minutes on the edge, in the middle. He's skillful, high work rate. He's everything that you want in a back rower. I think he's up there with the likes of David Fafita as the best edge forwards in the competition. So I think if South have got the money, I don't know if they do, but they should probably prioritise him over some other guys in their squad, and I would be willing to splash the cash on him. Yeah,
100% co-sign all of it.
But as a Dragons fan, let him hit the open market and see what Flano can do.
Let's just talk.
But I don't think if if we come around to November 1 in 6 or 8 weeks' time and he's still on still available, hasn't re-signed with South, I think it'll be more than just the Raiders, Dragons, and Roosters. I think there'll be at least half the teams in the NRL will be looking at Keaon Koloamatangi as a guy that they can build a forward pack around. He's an understated guy. He's not a big speaker, not a huge personality, but he's a leader within that South Sydney team, and he's a guy that, along with Cam Murray, could lead them for best part of the next decade. So I'm sure South Sydney will not want to lose him anytime soon. Yeah, 100%. I could have him at Cronulla if you want. That'd be great. That is it for us for this week. Week 3 of the finals. Bring it on. We're almost there, almost the grand final. Will you go to the grand final? Nah, I don't think so. No. Watch at home? I think so. Broncos Panthers? Are we? I think it's gonna be too big an ask for both Melbourne and the Warriors. I'd probably give the Warriors slightly more chance. Melbourne are no chance against Penrith, and Warriors are maybe a 10% chance against the Broncos. But from what we saw week 1 of the finals from Brisbane against Melbourne, who are have been there or thereabouts for a really long time, 26-0 shutout. They've had a week off. Everyone's fresh. They're full strength. I don't like the chances for the Wars. Yeah, me too, unfortunately. All right, then you heard it from the Oracle. We'll see you next week to make sure it was correct.